Moving to Cape Coral shouldn't have been this difficult. I promise. The fucking truck died in front of my brand new house, obstructing the winding street as if to give my meticulously planned schedule a mechanical middle finger. Steam gushed from the hood as I stood there feeling absolutely ridiculous in my high-end jeans and heels. "Do you need help?" A warm, slightly amused voice spoke up behind me. I almost gasped when I turned around. She was tall, perhaps 5'8", with blonde hair in an untidy bun, and the most amazing. Her clothes, which were utilitarian work gear and were smeared with dirt and what appeared to be plant matter, had the bluest eyes I had ever seen. However, she wore them as if they were high-end items. "My name is Madison," she said, dabbing at her hands. I pointed helplessly at the smoking truck and said, "New neighbor, Aaron." This wasn't exactly how I imagined making initial thoughts. "I've seen worse, I promise." She strolled around the truck, looking at it with a level of skill that surprised me. "The radiator hose you're looking at is broken, not going any place today." Fantastic. My whole life is in boxes with nowhere to put them. Something fluttered in my chest, and Madison smiled, as if she could read my expression. "Come on, before the afternoon rain arrives, move your belongings inside." For the next 2 hours, we labored by moving boxes and furniture while my hair became a frizzy mess due to the humidity in Florida. With effortless grace, Madison lifted heavy objects that made it difficult for me to move. I got this strange shock every time our fingers touched the boxes that passed by. "Consciousness, what are you doing?" During a water break, I inquired, attempting to look at the way her shirt fit over her shoulders. "I made butterflies, like everyone else." She stated it matter-of-factly, held that position. "Want to see?" "Really?" She guided me through a gate that I was unaware of, into her backyard. I was stunned by what I saw there. Behind her modest home was a huge glass conservatory house, perhaps 20 feet wide and 40 feet long. I could see color flashes dancing in the air through the transparent walls. I muttered, "Holy!" Madison let out a wind chime-like laugh. That's the typical response. The smell of rich earth and exotic flowers filled the warm, humid air that rushed out as she opened the door. It was like entering a different world inside. The room was filled with hundreds of butterflies, orange monarchs, tiny yellow sulfurs that shifted like living confetti, electric blue morphos. A jungle was formed by plants I couldn't identify, scenery beneath the glass roof. "This is amazing." As I inhaled, I saw a huge red and black butterfly land on, like an old friend. Madison held out his finger. "It's the work of my life." She stepped farther into the room, totally comfortable with the flying jewels. "Every species has unique requirements, foods, various cycles of reproduction." Captivated, I followed her. A tiny orange. I froze when a butterfly landed on my shoulder. "It's only a gulf, so don't worry. Fridleary, you are liked by her." My heart raced when Madison said that because of the way she looked at me. We were standing there and something changed inside of me as I was surrounded by living magic and the green-filtered light. "I should probably get back." Reluctantly, I said, "Unpack." Of course. However, neither of us made any movement, like it wasn't in a rush to go either. The butterfly on my shoulders slowly spread its wings. "Perhaps we could go on." This dinner conversation, Madison's tone was informal, but I could hear hope in it. "I would like that." Before I could give it too much thought, the words were spoken. As I returned to I couldn't get rid of the impression that my meticulously planned new life had simply taken a surprising turn. I could already smell her flowers on my clothes, calculating how many hours it will be until dinner. When I woke up the morning after our dinner, I was reminded of Madison's laugh and how, when she smiled, her eyes wrinkled. Then I was yanked when Jake's name flashed across the screen of my buzzing phone. "Let's get back to reality." "What on earth are you doing?" He sounded irritated. You haven't replied to my texts, and the Peterson group meeting is in 3 hours." I had totally forgotten about the presentation to investors. For the past 2 years, Jake and I have been working on this tech startup, and Peterson Group represented our greatest chance to date. I said, already putting on clothes. "I'm on my way. Send me the last set of slides, please." "Aaron, this is precisely what I mean. Lately, you've been preoccupied. What's wrong with you?" I was unable to tell him that I was thinking about my neighbor's butterfly sanctuary and how she had touched my hand as she passed by. "Last night's salt. Nothing is happening. I'm concentrated." "You had better be. This offer might make all the difference for us." 3 hours later, I sat in the glass conference room at Peterson Group, attempting to focus on quarterly forecasts as my thoughts continued to stray to Madison. The manner in which she described her butterflies with such, she explained the delicate process of assisting them in emerging from their cocoons with passion. "Aaron," Jake's voice faded. Through my mind, the question of revenue. I jolted back to reality, rushing to respond. "Mr. Peterson had his eyebrows up, observing me, following. Jake cornered me in the parking lot during the meeting. "What on earth was that? You appear to have traveled to a different planet. Didn't we get the deal? Only because I filled in for you. He looked at my face. You've changed in some way? Is this a move? Are you reconsidering your decision to go into business? I'm all right, Jake, simply getting used to the new environment. I arrived at Madison's door that afternoon carrying a bottle of wine and a flimsy excuse about saying thank you for dinner. She responded while sporting paint-stained overalls and a tank top that displayed her toned arms. She led me to the conservatory and said, "Perfect timing. I've got something incredible to demonstrate." She led me inside to a section where a number of chrysalises resembled jade ornaments hanging from branches. "Observe. This one," she muttered, gesturing to a golden-brown cocoon that appeared to be in motion. As we stood side by side, as we watched the miracle happen, our breathing synchronized, shoulder to shoulder. There was a fissure in the chrysalis, then expanded, impossibly slowly. A morpho butterfly appeared. Its dark-rimmed, deep blue wings resemble pieces of the sky. Madison breathed. "The wings are still soft. It will take several hours before it can take off." We were both mesmerized by the change as her face was inches from mine. I could sense the warmth emanating from her skin and smell her shampoo, which had a clean, flowery scent. "It is lovely," I muttered. Before I could say it, the words escaped my lips. "So are you?" Put an end to them. The air between us suddenly crackled with possibility as Madison turned to face me. Her mouth was a little separated. She searched my face with her blue eyes. "Aaron," she murmured. My phone made a decision. That instant when notifications exploded, Jake's name kept flashing on the screen. "Emergency. Call right away." The spell ended, and I took a step back, my heart thumping. "I apologize. I must accept this." Madison nodded, though her expression dimmed a little. Naturally, Jake's tone was, I answered in a panic. The Peterson team made a call in order to expedite the next stage. They require everything by tomorrow morning. We must work through the night. I glanced at Madison, who was feigning to research the recently butterfly. "In an hour, I'll be there. Give it half an hour." After hanging up, I turned to Madison. "I sincerely apologize. Workplace crisis. I get it." But her smile was tense. "First, business." I thought as I made my way back to my car that I was leaving behind something significant. I couldn't get Madison's dejected expression out of my head during the long night of spreadsheets and presentations, as well as the recollection of how near we had been and how appropriate it had felt to stand next to her in that enchanted room. It took me 3 days to summon the bravery to text Madison. That moment in the conservatory kept coming back to me, even though the Peterson deal was taking over my life. During endless conference calls, I kept thinking about the way she had looked at me when she said I was beautiful. I finally typed after drinking coffee. "For the other night, I owe you." Her reply was, "Right away." "That would be nice." At around 7, I'm at my place. I spent far too much time deciding on a soft blue sweater that drew attention to my eyes and dark jeans. I knocked on. Madison, wearing a sundress that left my mouth dry, answered her door. Around her shoulders, her blonde hair was loose, and she had a jasmine scent. She held up a professional camera and said, "I thought we could take some photos." The conservatory's golden hour sunlight makes for ideal lighting at this time of day, filtered through the glass, making everything magical and warm. After giving me the camera, Madison stepped back to demonstrate the settings to me. With her voice near my ear, she said, "Feel the weight of it. Photography is about." Her hands were over mine on the camera, directing my fingers to the focus ring as I waited patiently for the ideal moment. I could feel the warmth of her body against my back and her breath on my neck. I had hypertension in every nerve in my body, conscious of her closeness. "Now wait," she muttered. "There, take a look at that swallow's tail on the orchid that is purple." She fit me so well that I was hardly able to focus on anything else. My palms were trembling a little while. I made lens adjustments, and I was fairly certain that the camera was not the cause. I got it. I succeeded, pressing the shutter. Beautiful. However, as I turned to show her the picture on the camera's screen, she wasn't focusing on the screen, she was on me. We remained that way for a while. Between us, the camera was forgotten. I felt like I was drowning in blue eyes as they searched my face. I started to say, "Madison," but she stopped me. "Let's take a few more shots." The tension between us was electric, but we moved around the conservatory for the next hour. Each and every unintentional contact when she moved my hands. I experienced the same thing each time she leaned in to identify a butterfly. Shock of realization. We withdrew to her kitchen as the sun began to set. While I browsed her laptop's pictures, she opened a bottle of wine. "These are amazing," I said, sincere awe. "You ought to sell these." Perhaps one day she gave me a glass and sat on the couch next to me. "Describe your work to me. You appear anxious about it." My business associate believes that I'm losing concentration. I felt the warmth radiate through me as I took a sip of wine. He might be correct. What are your thoughts? I gazed at her, the stunning woman who had inexplicably upended my meticulously planned world in less than a week. I believe I'm learning what really counts. Rain began to patter as thunder rumbled overhead, up against the windows. It turned into a true Florida downpour in a matter of minutes. Gosh, Madison said softly. You could wait it out. I should return before this gets worse. The greenhouse is more, anyhow, acoustics. I gave her a closer look because of something in her voice. The cautious distance she had been keeping. The entire evening felt like it was passing quickly. Show me, I said. We sprinted through Despite the short distance, they laughed and got soaked as they made their way to the conservatory, the sound of rain falling inside. Glass surrounded us like a cozy cocoon. The room felt different after the butterflies had gone to sleep, more enigmatic and personal. Madison closed her eyes and said, "Listen." I attempted to concentrate on the rain, but the only sounds I could hear were her gentle breathing and my own heartbeat. As soon as I opened my eyes, she was observing me with a look that made me gasp. "Aaron," she said, taking a step toward him. "Yes, I can't get the other day and what nearly happened out of my head. Madison, I understand that this is a complex situation and that you have a business and a life in the city." Felt her sharp intake of breath and reached up to touch her face. At this moment, all of that is irrelevant. Her eyes fluttered shut as she leaned into my touch. "What? Does this matter?" I stepped forward until our bodies nearly touched. "You?" The rain pounded on. She cupped my face in her hands and held the glass above us. "Are you certain?" Rather than, I gave her a kiss in response. It was tentative and gentle at first, then deeper as she replied. Her mouth tasted of wine and was warm, and as she drew me in, I sensed something inside of me come living, breathing heavily and touching foreheads. We split apart. "I've desired to, that ever since I met you," she muttered. "Then why did we wait so long?" she asked with a joyful laugh. "And ponder." Good question. While the storm raged outside our glass sanctuary, there were sleeping people inside. I felt as though I had at last found my place, complete with butterflies and the aroma of exotic flowers. The morning following the storm, I awoke in my own bed with panic gnawing at my chest, and Madison's kiss still blazing on my lips. What the devil was I doing? Focus, discipline, reaching goals, and becoming entangled with no matter how amazing she was, my neighbor had the power to ruin everything I had worked so hard to achieve. I threw myself into my work with manic intensity for the next week. Constant attention was required for the Peterson deal, and I took advantage of it as a reason to stay away from Madison altogether. Through my kitchen, I noticed her working in her garden. Window, I move out of her way before she can wave. I sent a quick text to her when she asked if everything was all right. Business-like responses about having a ton of work. By Thursday, Jake was truly concerned about me. I was still at the office at 10 p.m. when he said, "I'm working 18 hours a day. How recently have you visited your home?" "I'm all right." I didn't look up from my laptop screen as I continued typing. "This is not acceptable. Even for you. This is compulsive." He took a seat on my desk's edge. "What took place? Last week, you were preoccupied. You're crazy now. Nothing took place. I'm concentrating on the company, just what you desired." Jake examined my face with the same look that had helped him become a prosperous businessman. "Reading individuals. Someone is at issue here." "Who is it?" "Nobody is there. You're behaving like you're fleeing from something." He hesitated. "Or someone." Irritated. I looked up at last. "Would it be possible for us to concentrate on the quarterly reports? Isn't it the neighbor, the person who assisted you with your move?" I became defensive because he had guessed so easily. "My neighbor isn't having any problems." "Is he? You've been working like a machine all week because of this." Jake's voice assumed that condescending tone I detested. "See, I understand. New location? You're isolated. Don't let a suburban housewife influence your thoughts, even though the first amiable face seems appealing." My chest flared, hot and protective. "Don't say that about her." "Oh, I see. She exists." Jake appeared to be content with himself. "You're going to seal the largest deal of your professional life. Aaron, don't ruin your relationship with a woman you hardly know. She isn't just any woman." I didn't mean for the words to sound so sharp. Jake's brows went up. "You've got a terrible situation." He gave a head shake. "This is precisely what I was concerned about. After relocating to the suburbs, you find yourself playing house with your neighbors. Proceed." Jake, home. Aaron, I'm not kidding. Stop it before it costs us money. Whatever it is, everything. I sat in my empty house that night and looked out my kitchen window at Madison's conservatory. She was moving among the plants, most likely making her evening rounds, and I could see that the lights were on. There were 3 on my phone, unread her texts, each one more painful and shorter than the last. The following: Madison showed up at my front door in the morning. Reluctantly, I opened it, not expecting to see how stunning she was. In the morning light, or how much my chest hurt when I saw her. Are you trying to avoid me? No small talk. No preamble. Her azure eyes were straightforward and slightly irate. I have been occupied. I could smell the familiar earthy and jasmine scent as I moved closer. We gave Aaron a kiss. We experienced a moment that was genuine and lovely. You're behaving as though I don't exist now. It's not easy. In what way is it complex? Do you regret it? I ought to have said yes. Ought to have made things simple for us both and put an end to whatever this was before it proceeded any farther. Rather, like a fool, I stood there and memorized how the sunlight reflected the gold in her hair. I have no regrets. At last, I muttered. Then what? I'm afraid before I could stop it, admission slipped out. Madison's face softened. Of what? Of this? Of you? Of making a mistake? Everything I've worked for, because you're always on my mind. She took a step forward, near enough that I could see the gray flecks in her blue eyes. What if this improves everything rather than making it worse? What if you don't have to choose between happiness and your career? Madison, before I could respond, her thumbs traced my cheekbones as she reached up and cupped my face. Something inside of me was undone by the gentle touch. I am unable to, I whispered. I swear I won't hurt you. I'm not requesting assurances. I want to know, for a possibility. It wasn't the same as the conservatory when she kissed me this time. More pressing, more desperate, as if she were attempting to establish a point. With all the annoyance and desire I had been feeling, I returned her kiss, my hands tangled in her hair as I carried her for a week. As we separated, breathing heavily, I became aware that we were still standing where anyone could see us, in my doorway. Instead of being alarmed by the thought, I felt akin to defiance. Come inside, I said. She looked into my face. Are you? Yes, please. I took her hand and ushered her into my home, shutting the door after us. I woke up and said, I'm tired of running. From the most bizarre dream the following morning, I was flying through the butterfly conservatory in Madison. My arms changed into wings with iridescence that glinted in the sunlight like stained glass. When I opened my eyes, the feeling was so intense that I thought I would be floating over my bed. On my pillow, I discovered a single purple flower petal instead. That was not possible. I had changed my sheets 2 days prior, and I hadn't been near any flowers yesterday. I grabbed it, smelling the sweet scent and delicate texture. It resembled Madison's greenhouse orchids exactly. I muttered, weird, and tossed it in the garbage. However, as the week went on, the dreams became more intense. I was able to soar through that enchanted glass space every night, encircled by butterflies that appear to know who I am. The aroma of jasmine would cling to my skin when I woke up, and actual proof of my nighttime travels can occasionally be found in the petals of flowers, dirt beneath my windowsill, dewdrops on my fingernails. Madison found me on the 4th night. I was in her conservatory when, dawn, in my pajamas, with no idea how I had arrived. The filtered morning light, dozens of butterflies danced around me as if I were a part of the scene, and rainbows formed on the foliage through the glass. Aaron, Madison spoke softly so as not to startle me. I turned, perplexed, sweeping over me. How did I end up here? She had blonde hair and was dressed in a silk robe, ruffled from slumber. The door alarm went off. You appeared to be waiting for something as you stood there. I said slowly, trying to piece together bits of memory, dreaming. There were butterflies in my stomach as I flew, everywhere, and they were attempting to communicate with me. Madison approached, her face changing from one of worry to something more profound. What did they say? I'm not sure, but it seemed significant. Suddenly, everything in the conservatory seemed familiar in an odd way. Madison, have you been here before? That is, prior to our meeting. She was closely examining my face, but not that I am aware of. Tell me about the dreams. I explained the recurrent visions as we sat on a wooden bench encircled by flowering vines. Madison, her blue eyes widened with every detail as she listened without interjecting. The butterflies in your dreams, she said. Lastly, can you explain them? Mostly blue ones, electric blue ones with edges that are black. Additionally, there was always this one enormous black butterfly with red spots that appeared to be in charge of the others. Morphos and Palamedes swallowtails. Those are my... Aaron, I have to show you the 2 rarest species. That's not possible. Before I met you, I didn't even know the names of butterflies. She guided me to a new area of the conservatory, where the plants were older, more formed, forming a canopy that filtered the light into green shadows. With a small memorial standing in the middle, Madison claimed to have constructed the garden, which had weathered stone benches and a bronze plaque that belonged to my grandmother. I read the plaque out loud in the original conservatory in 1952. In honor of Eleanor, my father's wife, Chen Li taught us that beauty transcends all boundaries and that love can take many forms. Mother, I discovered boxes of her letters and journals when I inherited this house. Madison's voice was quiet. She wasn't Erin. She was just a butterfly enthusiast who documented things that science couldn't explain. What kind of things? Dreams that told when butterflies would appear. People who came here because of visions asserted that the butterflies were messengers, which made me shiver. Madison, that's absurd. Is it? How else do you? Before I could explain sleepwalking to a place you've never been to and dreaming about butterflies you've never seen. Answer, an amazing thing occurred. Dozens of butterflies, mostly in my dreams, I saw electric blue morphos that whirled in a living spiral around us, their wings catching the morning light like pieces of the sky. And then I noticed the big black butterfly with red spots hovering right in front of Madison's hand touched mine as though it were staring at me. That's not possible, I muttered. A recurrent dream about finding someone who could see what she saw is mentioned in the grandmother's journals, would comprehend how the butterflies relate to the messages they convey. The black butterfly landed on our joined hands, its wings slowly opening and closing, and I experienced an odd warmth that suddenly spread up my arm. Feel a soft, loving presence all around us. She's still here, I said. The words emanating from Madison squeezed my hand and said, your grandmother. She's been trying to bring us together. Didn't the dreams begin after you came here? I nodded, speechless as the reality hit me. I finally realized what the butterflies had been trying to tell me in my dreams as they continued to dance around us. Some love stories are written in the language of wings and dreams, accompanied by spirits, and some connections defy logic, who are aware that the heart knows what the mind does not yet comprehend. After the butterflies subsided, Madison and I stayed on the bench with our hands clasped, both of us transformed by the enchantment we had shared. Madison and I went through her grandmother's journals together the next afternoon. The leather-bound, the loose bundle of letters was what made all the difference. Even though the books were full of delicate handwriting and pressed flowers, untying the faded ribbon, Madison remarked, they're all hidden in the attic and addressed to someone named Rose. Written in the same elegant script as the journals, the first letter was dated 1953. But as I read the words, the butterflies sang your name as my heart began to race. My dearest Rose, once more today. They've never been wrong about matters of the heart, but I know you think I'm stupid. I feel as though I'm flying with them through limitless gardens of opportunity when they touch my hand. These are love letters, I whispered to Madison, who leaned over my shoulder. In 1953, we spent the next hour reading along with another woman. The letters, assembling the tale of Eleanor and Rose's covert liaison, which began when Rose arrived to take pictures of the butterflies for a nature magazine. What began as a work-related task turned into a passion, hidden from an incomprehensible world for decades. Look at this, Madison said. Between the letters was a photograph of two women standing in the conservatory with their arms around each other's waists. Her grandmother's blonde hair was a striking resemblance to Madison's. And blue eyes. She looks exactly like you, I said. And Rose looks like, Madison gestured toward the other woman, who shared my green eyes and dark hair. The same smile, the same bone structure. I felt cold. That's not possible. We already know that impossible things happen here. So is it? Madison showed me her that night, Grandma's private garden, a long closed-off area of the conservatory. As we collaborated, I felt as though I had been here before, removing overgrown vines. And Madison said, removing the final piece of ivy from Grandmother's meditation area. There was a bench in the middle of a tiny stone circle underneath, and as soon as I sat down, butterflies started to gather, more than I had ever seen all at once, all around us. Their wings created a gentle, whisper-like susurrus. They're trying to tell us something, I remarked, observing a morpho landed on my hand. Madison sat next to me, our thighs touching. Moved, I believe they're expressing that we are linked to this location and to one another. You think that's true? Some love stories, in my opinion, transcend the individuals involved. She looked over at me, her eyes intent. What we experience, in my opinion, is more than just attraction or chance. It's acknowledgement. The term struck me like a lightning strike. Recognition. I had sensed that from the first time I laid eyes on her. That feeling of discovering what I had been seeking without even realizing it. Madison, I said, my voice hardly audible through the wings of the butterfly. I do believe I'm falling for you. It was like the sun piercing the clouds when she smiled. I believe I've been waiting for you to do this all my life. Say that, this time, when she kissed me, it was different, deeper, more assured, and laden with the weight of choice and fate combined. I could sense the warmth of her breath, taste the sweetness of her lips, and when with my hands entangled in my hair, I realized I was lost. We moved in unison, our bodies settling into a rhythm as around us, butterflies danced. Madison's skin felt smooth under my hands. Additionally, it sounded like a whisper when she said my name. Prayer. My back felt hard against the stone bench. I didn't care, though the way she looked at me was all that mattered, as if I were everything she had ever desired. Are you sure? She inquired. Her tone, desirous and husky. We made love there, and I've never been more certain of anything. The garden, filled with flowers, butterflies, and the soul of a woman who had secretly and deeply loved. Madison walked gracefully and passionately above me decades ago, her blonde hair gleaming in the filtered light, her blue eyes never leaving mine. I felt as though I was melting into pure sensation every time she touched me. After that, we lay entangled on the blanket Madison had spread over the nerve ending, which was alive with electricity. Stone bench, our hearts still pounding and our skin still wet. A lone morpho butterfly perched on my shoulder. "I love you," Madison whispered against my chest, as its wings slowly opened and closed. "Hair, I love you, too." The words brought a sense of home as dusk descended. I came to the realization that everything in my life had culminated in this moment over the conservatory. The business success that had brought me to Cape Coral, the moving truck broke down, Jake's pressure, and my own anxiety, all of these things had worked together for 3 days to bring me to this woman who felt like the other half of my soul, to this enchanted location. I was standing in Madison's conservatory when I woke up from the most vivid dream to date. But all the butterflies were dying, their vivid colors turning to gray as they dropped from the sky like autumn leaves. In the dream, I tried to reach Madison when I heard her crying, but my feet wouldn't move. So I jumped up in bed, my heart racing. Something wasn't right. So I put on some clothes and hurried to Madison's house, where I discovered her, crouching next to a display case of still butterflies in the conservatory at dawn. Her face was strewn with tears. "It began yesterday evening," she said without raising her gaze. "First a handful, then dozens. I don't comprehend the situation. My dream was coming true in a terrifying way. Gorgeous morphos and swallowtails with lifeless, dull wings were strewn across the ground of their habitat. Have you made a call to expert? Dr. Chen will arrive this afternoon, but he is currently traveling from Gainesville." The voice of Madison was devoid of hope. "They may all be gone by then." We had a morning spent frantically monitoring food sources, humidity levels, and temperature controls. There didn't appear to be any issues with the environment, which added to the mystery surrounding the mass die-off. Madison worked frantically, but I tried to think of something. So I said, maybe it's some kind of toxin, as I could see the defeat seeping into her eyes. That could be useful. I've already checked for that. Everything is normal. Jake's ringtone buzzed on my phone. I had been ignoring his calls all morning, but at last the persistent sound got through to me. "Where are you?" His tone was, "The Peterson Group accelerated their timeline, and we must complete those projections today, or we lose the whole deal." I glanced at Madison, whose hands were shaking as she carefully lifted another dead butterfly. "Can't come in today." "What do you mean?" "This is our career's greatest opportunity. Something significant came up. More significant than our business. More significant than all that we have created together." "Jakes, this is about that woman, isn't it?" "Her name is Madison. And yes, it is. Damn it, Aaron." The voice was growing louder. Madison looked up at me, and I told him, "You're sacrificing our future for some suburban fantasy." She'd heard enough to know that something had broken in her expression. "You should go," she said softly. "Your business is more important." "No, it's not," Jake continued to yell over the phone. "If you're not here in an hour, I'm ending the partnership. I'll purchase your stock and look for a new business partner who genuinely cares about success." I gazed at the dying butterflies and the woman I loved as she battled to save. Then I glanced at my phone, which displayed the representation of everything I had imagined wanting. "Jake, do what you must." Madison looked at me in disbelief as I hung up and switched off the phone. "Aaron, the Peterson deal, however, shows that you can't simply abandon your career. If it means you have to deal with this alone, your business can all go to hell." I took hold of her hands before she could object any further. "Madison, I had these butterflies in my dream last night, dying. But I also noticed something else. An area of the conservatory with older equipment that I had never seen before. What if the original building is the issue instead of this one?" Hope flickered in her eyes. "I haven't used the foundation house in years, but it was my grandmother's original setup." We hurried to we discovered the building behind the main conservatory, which had been nearly obscured by overgrown vines. Carbon monoxide was leaking into the connected ventilation system due to a malfunctioning exhaust system. As we collaborated to turn off the toxic machinery, Madison remarked, "I can't believe I missed this." You was unable to know. By the afternoon, when the source of the toxin had been removed and fresh air had been introduced, the connection was not immediately apparent. Circulating, the remaining butterflies started to recover. Rebuilding the population would take months, but we'd saved the majority of them, with butterflies slowly reviving around us as we sat exhausted on the conservatory floor. "Madison, you gave up everything for me today?" she said, turning to face me with tears in her eyes. "No," I replied, drawing her near to me. She put her head on my shoulder and leaned into me, finally making the decision that matters. What are your plans for your career? I have some money saved up, so perhaps I'll launch a new venture that doesn't have to decide between love and success. A morpho butterfly landed on its blue wings glinting in the afternoon light as we clasped hands. I reflected on my grandmother Eleanor, the decisions she'd made out of love, and understood that some choices are passed down through the generations. Whatever happens next, stated, we'll work it out together. Madison raised her head to gaze at me, and I saw not only love but collaboration, the sort of bond that could endure any hardship, endure any transformation. She concurred. And when I tasted the future on her lips when she kissed me, and the following morning brought unexpected clarity. As I assisted, for the first time in years, my phone was silent, no urgent emails, no Jake while Madison fed the recuperating butterflies. Calling in an emergency, Madison's soft voice and the rustle of wings were all that could be heard. There was no pressure to be somewhere else. I keep expecting to feel anxious, I told her, describing which flowers each species preferred. While observing a newly, I've never seen a swallowtail test its wings, but perhaps that's your response. Madison grinned there as the morning light filtered through the glass and caught her blonde hair. We sat in Eleanor's memorial garden that evening, reading more about her, but we don't need what we think we want. Listen to this, I said, reading aloud from a recent letter that revealed something that made my hands shake. Last night, Rose, the butterflies gave me a vision. Decades later, two women discover love in the same garden, one with your eyes and one with my hair. They're supposed to carry on what we began, in my opinion, to freely love. Madison saw us and leaned against my shoulder, saying, in ways we never could. 70, it's impossible, isn't it? We've seen impossible things. She saw us years ago. She was correct, the dreams, the sleepwalking, the way the butterflies seemed to plan our meetings. Everything felt completely true, even though none of it made sense. There's more. Hi. Eleanor wanted to transform this place into a butterfly, she said. Turning the page, she writes about a business plan, sanctuary that people could go to. She wrote, let love be the lesson they learn, and let beauty be the bridge between hearts. Madison straightened his posture. A butterfly tourism company. Your knowledge, my experience in marketing. As I talked, the concept solidified. We could bring Eleanor's dreams to life here. Are you serious? Dead serious. We could provide guided tours. My thoughts were racing with photography classes, perhaps even butterfly releases for special events. Possibilities. People would travel from all over Florida to experience this place. Madison, which is magical. She was quiet, after a long moment, during which I was concerned that I had gone too far. She turned to me, her blue eyes gleaming with anticipation. That would have made this place a celebration rather than a secret. Something Eleanor would have loved. We spent the following week organizing, and I became aware that I had never been more motivated to work. This wasn't the frantic desire that had motivated my tech career. This was a purposeful passion. Madison's understanding of butterflies and my business abilities produced something that neither of us could have constructed on our own. The evening that we completed our business plan, Madison, she said, to new beginnings, and opened a bottle of champagne she had been saving. We drank in the conservatory as she raised her glass to help us find our place. Floor, with flowers all around, and the soft sound of butterfly wings, as the sun sank, casting a variety of hues on everything, of amber and gold, and I had the impression that I was in a dream. Aaron, I need to tell you something, Madison said, putting down her glass. Her serious, I felt uneasy about the tone. What? I cherish you, not only the thrilling new partnership, kind of love, the intense, this is my person kind of love. Something complicated happened in my chest. Madison, I know, even though it's only been a few weeks, I feel like I've been waiting for you all my life. I grabbed her and pulled her in. I feel the same way, like you're the missing component. I didn't realize I was until she was almost in my lap. Searching for, her hands framed my face, and I could taste her lips as they kissed me, soft and desperate all at once. The champagne on her lips, as the last of the light faded. We moved in unison, our bodies finding their rhythm. I marveled at how she appeared in the streaming moonlight, as I pulled her shirt over her head from the sky. She was strong, gorgeous, and mine, and when she whispered my name, it sounded like we made love in the garden where Eleanor had once loved Rose, where decades of covert passion had blessed the ground beneath us. Madison gracefully and intensely walked over me, her hair cascading around us like every kiss was a vow, every touch felt sacred. And then we lay wrapped in Madison's emergency blanket, our skin still wet and our hearts still pounding. A soft chorus of, I've got something for you. Cricket songs drifted in from outside, blending with the gentle rustle of sleeping butterflies. My breath caught when Madison reached for her discarded jeans and produced a small velvet box. Eleanor opened the box to find a plain gold ring set, But what? It was hers, with a tiny blue stone. I believe it was Rose's ring, which I discovered with the letters, gazed at the fragile band, reflecting on relationships that endure for decades, and love that knows no bounds. Separation, I muttered. Are you proposing to marry me? I accepted the ring as my life, business, and love partner. I took it out of the box, feeling its warmth and weight, and it fit my finger like a glove. Been anticipating me? Yes, I replied, and I gave her a passionate kiss to bind our agreement. 6 months later, I stood in the conservatory watching Madison lead a group of tourists through the life cycle of a butterfly. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and I could see the joy on the faces of the kids. The sanctuary had surpassed our most optimistic expectations, with a monarch landing on their outstretched fingers, guests making reservations months in advance. Madison was pointing to the true magic occurs during a display of chrysalises, where a complete metamorphosis from one form of life to another, recalling our own metamorphosis. I grinned. The tech firm I didn't care that the building that Madison and I had done here with Jake had been sold to Peterson Group for a fraction of its potential value, was more valuable than any business transaction. My aspirations had also evolved. Rather than soaring through the conservatory, I now envisioned plans for growth, fresh educational initiatives, and the faces of tourists who would learn about the wonder we'd constructed together. But occasionally, even in the quietest times, I could still feel Eleanor's presence, a soft affirmation that murmured through the butterfly wings. Madison smiled at me as the tour group continued, gave me a contemporary engagement band that gleamed in the light, and she wore Eleanor's ring on a chain around her neck. Filtered sunlight, we discovered that while some customs needed to be updated, others were worth keeping. During a break between tours, I informed her that the afternoon photography workshop was fully booked. And the butterfly, it will be stunning when the Henderson wedding is released next week. I sometimes find it hard to believe that this is our life, Madison said as she wrapped her arms around my waist from behind me, and I reclined against her warmth while observing a group of teenagers take meticulous pictures of a dazzling blue morpho. Do you recall the question, what if this makes everything preferable to ruining it? Her mouth touched my neck. I was talking about a lot of things, wasn't I? That night, following the final guests had left, we shared a bottle of wine and discussed our next expansion while sitting in Eleanor's memorial garden. The population of butterflies had not only rebounded, but flourished, with a number of uncommon species opting to join our sanctuary. Their long-term residents. I have something to show you, Madison said, taking out a letter I had never seen before. I discovered it yesterday, hidden in the rear of Eleanor's last journal. The ink was less faded and the paper was newer than the others. As I read, my hands started to tremble. The vision has come true if you're reading this. The butterfly dreams brought you two together, like they did when they brought Rose to me all those years ago. Love always finds a way. Granddaughter, now that the sanctuary is yours, it is your duty to demonstrate to others that various forms of love produce the most lovely gardens. 3 years ago, long after Eleanor should have died, the letter was signed, "When did your grandmother die?" I whispered. 5 years ago, but I discovered this yesterday, and the ink appears to be new. We gazed at one another in the last of the light, surrounded by the scent of night-blooming jasmine and the sound of wings are two mysteries She's still here, I finally said, continuing to make sure love. Madison took my hand, her thumb tracing over my engagement ring. Always, as though called by our words, butterflies started to emerge from their hiding spots in the evening, one at a time, followed by dozens, then hundreds, their wings caught the last of the light as they danced in spirals above our heads, illuminating the air around us with vibrant color. As the sun began to set, I reflected on the morning I had arrived in Cape Coral, feeling irritated and preoccupied with everything else. Back then, someone had told me that a broken-down moving truck would bring me the love of my life, and a job that would support my soul. I would have chuckled. Now, sitting here in this enchanted setting with Madison's hand in mine, and Eleanor's blessing inscribed in the language of butterfly wings, I realized that the most memorable love stories are the ones that take us by surprise, that completely change us, making it impossible to remember who we were before. Madison turned to face me, her blue eyes ready to head home. I glanced around the conservatory, at the colors of the dancing butterflies, business we'd established together, at the life we'd built with a dream, tenacity, and love that went beyond time. I am home, I declared, and I gave her 1,000 blessing kisses, our future with their flight. Tomorrow, the sanctuary would reopen, allowing new guests to see we had found magic. However, this moment was exclusively ours tonight, to the affection that, under the guidance of spirits who recognize that some stories are too lovely to conclude with a single generation,